Hey guys, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. On this channel, I hope to teach and inspire you by showing you cakes that I have made and hopefully give you some inspiration. And for this tutorial, this is actually a New Year's Eve wedding cake. I couldn't share it before because the timing was wrong because I couldn't share the video with you before the wedding reception happened. That wouldn't be fair. So I'm going to share it with you now. And this was a 5-tier cake. The bottom 3 layers or tiers were fake, and the top was real. Top 2 were real. So I'm going to show you how I covered the 12-inch cake, but all the 10-inch, 12-inch, and 14-inch were all covered the same way. But this is the tier that had the champagne colored fondant. So this is how I attach it. I just used some shortening to brush on the top, and I just colored this fondant with ivory. This is how I like to get my champagne colors. You can use a light brown to achieve a champagne color, but I just like to use the ivory because a lot of the browns have some off shades sometimes, some off tones. And I don't like to mess with that. I don't like surprises, so I'm just sticking with the ivory, and I'm going to add a finish to it that will make it actually champagne. So now I'm just rolling it to the height and the circumference of the tier. And I'm leaving a little extra on it so that I have enough to wrap around and I don't have to try to stretch it either taller or wider. And I just put the shortening on the fondant itself. And this is a super easy way to cover your dummy cakes, and just roll it up on there and then place it upside down on your surface. And then I'm just smoothing the fondant, trying to get rid of air bubbles. And then where the 2 overlap, I'm just place a straight edge, and I cut through both layers and remove the excess and butt them up together. And that's how you get a nice, clean, I want to say ending, but it's not ending, where the 2 pieces meet. Then flip it back over and go back in and kind of merge your top and your side pieces of fondant together. You might see a little bit of a line around, but try to smudge them together enough so you don't really see that. And it's on the top, so nobody's really going to pick up on that. So the way that I get my champagne color is I just am using some Pearl Sheen airbrush color on top of the ivory. Now, this gets you a paler champagne, but to me, champagne is a pale color anyways. And champagne is basically, I kind of described that earlier, but a good way it was explained to me was it's basically a pale brown or an ivory with a shimmer on top. That's what gives it the champagne color, because it's not really a color, it's a finish. It's an iridescence to it that makes it the champagne. So that's how I did that. And I did all 3 bottom tiers the same way, and I just set them aside and let them dry. Now, this tier is the 8-inch, I'm sorry. The 8-inch is just covered in buttercream. And this, like I said, is real cake on this tier. And then I'm just using my stencil, this boho stencil, to kind of add some touches of the stencil all around the entire tier. My goal was not to completely cover it. You could, but for time reasons, we had a short week last week, so for time reasons, we decided, Addie and I, my boss and I decided, let's just go ahead and do touches of it, because there's going to be a monogram on the front anyways. So you get the point of it without going to more lengths to cover the entire thing, because there's dry time in between, and it becomes a whole thing. So this got our point across. And the top tier is just covered in coated in buttercream, and it's chilling. We'll get to that later, but for now, we're going to go ahead and stack our 3 fake tiers on the bottom. This is how I like to do it, just with a little bit of buttercream. And these have set up so I can just lift them up with my hands. Fondant on a cake foam dummy, we call them dummies, but a fake cake tier dries pretty quickly. And then I just went around and I filled in the gap in between each tier and smoothed it down to remove the excess. I find the best way to do this when you have different colors is to cut a very small hole in your bag so that you're not getting too much buttercream on your colored tier. And then I am anchoring them down to the cake boards, the cake drums, with a sharpened dowel. These tall cakes that have bottom tiers that are fake are very top heavy and very easily tip over in transport. So we're going to make sure that we have a lot of support in there. There'll be extra support for the top 2 tiers, but for now, We're just going to deal with the bottom ones. And the way that we did this might be controversial. We used actual fabric store ribbons and sequins. We did not attempt to make them edible for a lot of reasons. That would have taken this cake. I have 9 hours of footage of just the decorating that I have edited here. That's just the decorating, the way as is. If we had made all of that edible when the tiers are fake anyways, can you imagine how long that would have taken? That's just not feasible for what we can charge for a cake. It just doesn't make sense. And your options for edible sequins are fairly small. They had an inspiration picture that we were going off of and made our own twist on it. And none of the decorations were edible in that picture either. There's just no way that we could have done it. It would be close to impossible. So anyway, I'm sure people are going to have an issue with that, but just communication, like I always say, make sure that the manager at the venue, the caterer, your event coordinator, whoever's going to be in charge of the cake knows what is edible and what's not. So now I'm going to make the monogram. And we'll get to, the top tier has some of the non-edible decorations on it also. And that is another time, since it's edible, that you definitely need to make sure that either you are cutting it and prepping it, or you have for sure communicated what needs to be done. Contract signed too, if that helps. So this is edible paper printed with edible ink. They had their monogram already, so we were able to just print it off on our edible printer. And I just cut it out, and then I'm just putting some some piping gel on the cut out piece of fondant. We like to back our edible images with fondant. It prevents warping and bubbling. And I decided that I needed my bottom circle underneath the monogram to be a little bit smaller. So I went ahead and I just cut another one. Because this piece, I needed to have an edge around it because I needed to edge it out in gold. Their colors were black, white, gold, silver. You get the gist. And champagne. They wanted metallics in black and white. Very sophisticated. This reception was very sophisticated. And I painted that edge with just Everclear mixed with gold luster dust. I just set that aside to dry on a circular. I put a cake dummy up on its side, anchored it down so it doesn't roll away, and I place my decorations that need to dry with that shape to them off to the side and let that firm up. Because otherwise, if you don't let it dry in that shape, the arched shape, it's going to stick out when you place it on the cake. And I am attaching these. I started with buttercream, but then the buttercream was coming through the sequins a little bit, so then I just went back to using piping gel. Good old piping gel always works for me. And this did take a while. And I learned as I was going, for the smaller pieces, like the strings of sequins, when you cut the end, they all want to fall off. So I just kind of draped the extra over the top there. You can see how I did that. And once that piping gel has set up, I went back and cut them off, the extra off. So basically overnight, because this took me 2 complete days to decorate, really, because I'm not kidding when I say this took a long time. And I did another wedding cake in the days that I had to work last week. So the entire time was not on this cake, but there was a lot of drying time overnight. And I just kind of wrapped the design around the back just a little bit, just to kind of tie it in. I would have been good with just stopping it in the front, but my boss's input on that was to just go ahead and wrap it around. So I did. And I'm just attaching these with some more buttercream, and I am adding dowels or some support straws in between the top 2 tiers. You're going to need that. They're all cut to the same height to keep the top tier from squishing the second to the top tier. A little bit more buttercream, and then I just plop that top tier on because sorry about my head. Yes, this is how my hair looks every day, if you haven't noticed. And then I added another sharpened dowel through the top 2 tiers down into the foam, and then I countersunk it down a little bit and then filled in that hole on the top with some buttercream. And the monogram, I'm just sticking on with some buttercream. Just a little bit. You don't need a lot. And I'm trying to make sure that I am not rubbing off any of that gold from the outside edge of that monogram onto the white. That was why I was looking at my hands, making sure that they didn't have any gold on there. And then these, again, are not edible. They are cake toppers. They're sold to be used on cakes. Again, make sure that they remove those from the cakes before they serve it. And we're just cascading them down. And they wanted some disco balls also. So that was kind of fun to add there. And then just a little bit of some edible gold leaf on that tier. And I just dampened it with a little piping gel and then transferred the edible bleh, the gold onto that, and it sticks to the piping gel and not to the rest of the cake because it is nice and dry. And I'm just going to town with these decorations. And we thought they were going to have some more of the disco balls, different sized ones at the reception. So I tried to leave a few holes here or there. I did not decorate or deliver it, so I needed to leave Addie some room to add some on there. But I wanted to have some on there so that I could have some for the final picture, because you never know how the pictures are going to turn out at the venues. I did see the pictures of the cake at the venue, and they're gorgeous pictures, but they're not from the front. So I can't really use them for that. So I just always go ahead and make sure that I take my pictures before I let them head out the door. So that's our finished cake. I hope you liked it. I hope you like this New Year's Eve theme. And we'll catch you on the next one.